In this video, Sam Basu from Progress is going to show us how you can share code with .NET MAUI. We'll see how you can combine components from Blazor and .NET MAUI in the same project and have them sharing code and events, talking to each other, all using that .NET goodness. Check it out.
Good morning to all of you. You are in the future. You have seen the future. I have not. It's still evening time, actually, for me. I'm in Northwest Pennsylvania in the Americas. So it's around 6:23 p.m. on a Friday evening. So I'm just glad to be at least be with you virtually. Maybe someday we can, I can, come over and we can be in person. Okay, so I will try to go maybe 27 more minutes and we'll try to wrap up. So like I said, thanks for being here. My name is Sam Basu. I'm a dev advocate at Progress Software. Hopefully you know us for some of the things we build to make developers a little bit more successful. We are known for UI components and testing solutions and CMS and all the things. That's me pretty much online everywhere. Twitter, Skype, GitHub, everywhere. If I show you some code samples, they're all up on my GitHub repos. So that's a place to find me if you need me after this. Okay, so we will talk about a few more things today, not just .NET, but let's start with .NET because we are talking about .NET MAUI. So as we stand right now, we are on .NET 6, which came out last November. It's our production-ready platform, and as we speak, .NET 7 is almost ready. It's actually shipping this Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, with .NET Conf. That's a virtual conference that they're hosting. But the story doesn't change a whole lot. We are sitting on a very unified stack, and it's taking them a while to get here because like .NET had a lot of base class libraries that needed to be combined from Mono, from base .NET framework. It's all done now. Blazor runtime, it's all good. And modern .NET lets you target just about every platform. The tools of our trade are great across Windows, Mac. So it's a good story. It's a good place to be. I think the latest as we stand right now is .NET 7. It's almost ready. If you go get it right now, you're going to get RC2, Release Candidate 2. They had like 7 or so previews and then the 2 release candidates, and then it ships, like I said, next week. A lot of emphasis on .NET MAUI, containerization, ARM64 support, performance optimization, a lot of things. And for .NET MAUI, you can write on the latest .NET 7 bits. Visual Studio has had a lot of updates. The Windows side of the story with .NET MAUI in particular, that's done. Mac is still a little bit in preview. I think this one's a little old. We are up to like preview 6 now, but Windows tuning is completely done. Mac, it works, but it's still in preview mode a little bit. So when it comes to building apps for enterprises or your indie developers, I'm going to talk about 3 things: mobile, desktop, and web. Sure, you can do IoT, you can do gaming, and all the things, but I'm talking about the core of what most apps are like. So let's start with mobile because that's where we are. I say 2023 because it's almost the holiday season. If you start an app today, you likely ship it next year. So lots of ways to build for mobile. Now, it doesn't always need to be an app. If you want, a nice mobile web experience, that's doable. Lots and lots of frameworks that kind of help you out. All the SPA frameworks, Bootstrap, and everything kind of tries to help you out. You can make that a progressive web app, so it's a really good citizen on mobile devices. But you're using the web as your distribution medium. So if you want to be in the stores, if you want to be native, then you got some solutions. If you want to go native, by all means, iOS, Android, and Windows, you can. It's just expensive. It's 3 different code bases trying to serve up one app. So it's expensive for an enterprise as well as for individuals. If you want to go cross-platform, you can do JavaScript native, you can do cross-compiled. So lots and lots of solutions, and developers like to have choice, and that's something we appreciate having in our technology stack. So the good thing is you have a lot of choice, and Xamarin and Flutter and most things .NET MAUI, they kind of all are in the cross-compiled solution is where we are at. So speaking of .NET, this is kind of where things started. And I'm an old man. I started with this stuff way back when it was mono touch, mono iOS, essentially Xamarin. So this was called Xamarin iOS and Xamarin Android, where you first started writing shared C#, and then you wrote the platform heads separately. This, by the way, a lot of people ask, this has not gone away. It's just, Xamarin moniker is gone, but this is now .NET for iOS and .NET for Android. But it does require you to know, the native stack, iOS and Android. So it may not be something that everyone jumps at. So then we started doing Xamarin Forms, which is where we started writing shared UI code, which was great, either XAML or C#, but it was a niche audience. The dev experience was nice, but let's be honest, there were some pain points. And again, Xamarin Forms has not gone away as we speak. The last major version is 5. You're going to get security updates for about 2 more years and bug fixes. But May 2024, so you have some time to move things over to .NET MAUI. But they are trying to address some of the pain points that we have with formal Xamarin Forms development today. So that's where this thing comes in. It's called MAUI, which stands for Multi-Platform App UI. The P is silent because MPAUI doesn't sound as nice as MAUI. So hopefully, if you have looked around a little bit, you start, seeing the promise of what it's trying to do. It is your next generation cross-platform .NET Dev. Now, mobile is given. Like coming from Xamarin Forms, we are, very much from a mobile-first mindset, but that has kind of changed and evolved over, over the last, year or so. It's also desktop now. So truly single shared code base, shared resources that you have, and that's serving up, native apps for iOS, Android, and Windows and Mac. To reach Windows and Mac, it's thankfully not doing anything new. Windows is WinUI, and Mac is Mac Catalyst, which is Apple's way of, running your iPad apps on a Mac. So very established ways of reaching desktop. The new UI rendering architecture is great. Lots of ways to customize, great ecosystem. We'll talk about Blazor a little bit more. So, lots of ways to, bring in and, start modernizing your code base with .NET MAUI. Desktop. How do you build for desktop? Again, based on how old you might be, you may or may not have done some of this. I have done quite a bit of this. The top 4 are, native Windows stacks. Don't let anyone tell you WinForms, WPF are dying. They're fine. They run on .NET Framework, which is a part of Windows. So you're fine for the next, 10, 15 years. And this is the most remarkable part. You can take a WinForms or WPF app written 10 years, 15 years back, and you can run it on .NET 6 today. You can run it on .NET 7 tomorrow. So you have ways to start modernizing things. Again, if you want to do web apps, web technologies are very welcome on Windows. Lots of, store apps are, web apps, essentially PWAs or Electron is battle tested. While we talk about MAUI today, just remember, like VS Code and Figma, a lot of those apps are Electron apps. So it works. You just need to know where the memory footprint might be. It might be a little heavy-handed for what you're trying to do. The last 2 are essentially enabled by .NET MAUI. So .NET MAUI, like I said, reaches Windows through WinUI, and then Blazor for all the web developers in the room. Your .NET web development skills are now very welcome on desktop and mobile because Blazor is very welcome. But it's not just Blazor. I mean, we'll talk about how .NET MAUI does it. It's through a giant web view. Every platform has a modern web browser, so that's what we're using. And Microsoft likes to obviously talk about Blazor, but it's not just Blazor. You can bring in Angular or React or Vue or any type of web app. It's happy to render. So lots of choices for Windows. And Mac and Linux, not a separate or a very different story. Same things work. For all 4 of you who run Linux as your desktop, power to you, but you can reach Linux. Actually, you cannot reach Linux officially through .NET MAUI yet. Again, even for Microsoft, engineering is, it's hard, it takes time. So they have to go with the masses first, and maybe we'll have Linux support. There's like a community driven effort right now. So, lots of ways to reach Mac and Linux as well. And one thing I'm missing here is, Samsung makes another operating system called Tizen, and that had run Xamarin Forms before, and now it runs .NET MAUI just fine. So lots of ways to build desktop, and again, it's good to have choices. How do you build for web? Again, we have a lot of choices. And if you are coming from a .NET background, traditionally what we have done is always been ASP.NET, and that has had multiple variations. We have had, web forms, we have had MVC and Razor, All of that is great, and now it's truly an open source modular platform, really, really fast, especially for APIs. And I mean, if you have APIs today that are running on .NET 4 or 5 or 6, consider moving them forward to the latest, because you gain performance benefits. But prior to Blazor coming into the picture, ASP.NET is still kind of a server-side technology, and while it scales, it's not ideal for modern, web, SPA or client-based applications. So that's where Blazor really changed the things up. I remember, like, when early days of Blazor, Steve Sanderson and the ASP.NET team, they were showing off, demos, and it kind of blew everybody's mind that you could do that with C#. But Blazor is here. It's very mature and polished nowadays. Blazor is your modern web .NET framework. Lets you build web applications, and it runs in two modes. One is server side, which is where it's mostly being rendered on the server, and then you have a little SignalR real-time bridge that you're maintaining a shadow DOM, and you're running things off. Really good for like line of business apps. But the more exciting thing is with WebAssembly, which is thankfully a web standard. No one owns it, but you can compile things down straight up into WebAssembly, just the way your JavaScript engines execute JavaScript. Now they can execute WebAssembly. So things like Rust and C# and C++, they can be compiled down into WebAssembly. So really good news, great performance, and everything can be running in the browser. All of your .NET DLLs get shipped to the browser. So really good. Now, Blazor is not just for the web. You can consider ways of bringing it to mobile and desktop. PWAs are a very natural fit, actually. They run just fine on the client side. You can put Blazor with an Electron shell, put it on desktop, but again, might not be what you're looking for, might be a little heavy-handed. And .NET MAUI makes it very, very easy to bring Blazor into mobile and desktop, because Blazor and .NET MAUI have the exact same runtime. It's .NET 6 today, it's going to be .NET 7 next week. So the code sharing story is particularly good. All right, and that's essentially what what's called Blazor Hybrid. So you have a giant web view, and essentially when .NET MAUI app runs, it bootstraps itself, and it's going to ask iOS, Android, Mac, and Windows to go get me a modern browser. And that's the browser you get without the shell, and you get to render all types of web stuff in it. So JavaScript is welcome, CSS and Sass is welcome, and you can really code share, truly have a single code base from where you drive your mobile apps and your desktop and your web apps. So good story all around. Yeah, and as we move forward, again, all of this is exciting. What you might be, again, might not be very relevant to what you are building today. But again, when you go back to work on Monday, you might be stuck with some older technologies, right? And so I think what .NET MAUI and Blazor does essentially is provide ways to modernize your code base, move things forward a little bit. Again, like I said, WinForms WPF and UWP, again, based on who you talk to, it's dead or really doing well. It's essentially evolved into WinUI 3. Those things are just fine. You can run them on .NET 6, on .NET 7. If you are, building Xamarin apps right now, you don't have to, your house is not on fire, but you can slowly move things over. It's a fairly seamless migration from Xamarin to .NET MAUI. Like I said, if you're running anything web API, consider moving them forward. And Blazor and MAUI obviously will work together. You can actually embed little bits of Blazor, even without .NET MAUI, inside of your WinForms, inside of your WPF app. So there are ways to modernize your code base. And again, as an enterprise, you don't get to throw away an app that's been running your business. You want to take small bite-sized pieces of modernizing your app slowly. And again, if you're doing JavaScript, if you have investments, those are welcome as well. Okay, so we're like 14 minutes in. This is where I try to show you as much of code as I can, but like I said, I'm having a few issues on at least my Mac machine. We'll see how the Windows side works. So let's take a look at some stuff here, okay? And Matt or everybody else watching, let me know if there are any questions from the room or anything else I can address, and I will try to do so. .NET MAUI, if you have not played around with it, if you do a search, this is actually a brand new site they just pushed out a couple of days back. So new fonts and new shiny things, and they tell you all about it and how you get started. So essentially runs on .NET 6 today, runs on .NET 7 tomorrow, and .NET is just a it's just a folder. It's not your system-wide installation, so it's really easy to pack .NET with your application and also, run different versions of .NET on your machine. Now, with .NET MAUI, though, you get truly a single shared code base, but you are, catering to mobile and desktop. So let me try to show you an app here. So just because you have a single code base and you're targeting mobile and desktop does not mean that your user experience should be the same. In fact, it should not. So let's see if my Visual Studio is working. This is Visual Studio for Mac, by the way. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger. So most MAUI programs, this one might be a little different, but essentially it starts out with the the builder. This is the .NET generic host builder, and we have dependency injection that's kind of built in. And then everything is really combined, like your resources, your fonts, your images, all of those things are now combined. They do some, image resizing magic behind the scenes to try to make your SVGs work across, Windows or Mac or, iOS or Android as best as possible. So let me see if I can run this app really quickly and try to show you what I'm talking about. So, everything's live. I'm doing a build. We'll see if it works. All right, build is good. It's waiting for the app to come up. Now, you have a few choices, with .NET MAUI as to how you write the UI. XAML is the most obvious choice, especially if you're coming from Xamarin Forms, but it's extensible application markup language. Not everybody is a fan of it, and I get it. It's a little verbose, maybe older people like Matt or me are perfectly on board, but it's not for everyone, and we get it. There's tooling that kind of helps you out. But if you don't like XAML, you don't have to write XAML. You can write your entire visual tree in C# if that's what you want to do. MVVM is a design pattern model view model that works particularly well with C# and XAML. You have a choice of MVU as well, which is kind of experimental. And if you want to do web technologies, then you can do completely web stuff and not care about XAML at all. So let's see if this is, it's going to take a while here because my machine is really slow. Let's see if I can start you off on the Windows side. Maybe that's a little faster for me. So Microsoft Visual Studio 2022 everywhere. And let's start with, that app I think came out, or maybe not. Yeah, it's still thinking for some reason. Okay, let's go to yeah, this one here. This is .NET MAUI kind of hello world type solution. So especially on Windows, you get some really nice things that you can work with. Similar tooling on a Mac, but this is your .NET MAUI app. Everything is shared, and it's truly a single code base that's driving it all. Let me see if I can run this really quickly. This is kind of a hello world app, and it's waiting. Visual Studio is waiting for me to finish loading up everything, or I'm waiting on Visual Studio. All right, I think it's done now. There you go. All right, so let's run this on Windows, and I'll show you things on Mac with iOS or Mac Catalyst as well. But essentially, since I did a build here in debug mode, I get some extra benefits, like I get like XAML previewers, I get a visual tree, so I can point at kind of like what we do with DevTools. We can point at special parts of the UI and get to drill down to exactly the markup that's rendering it. And they also have things like hot reload, which is where you change things and you don't have to building the app, and it just kind of works. So this is .NET MAUI. These are some of the XAML tooling that I was talking about. It's there if you have breaking changes as you are binding things, it kind of tells you. So in here, if we go in here and let's just say change it to that, and I save it. In fact, I don't even need to save it sometimes. And it's getting very confused for some reason. I just changed one line of code here. Yeah, I'm trying to show you a simple hot reload, but it's not liking me so much. Okay, so how about we? Oh, it's trying to fire this up on my iOS, which I don't need right now. All right, cancel. All right, and it's not just for XAML. So XAML changes, it picks up really nicely, but it's also for C#. So there's a button here. Essentially, when you click on that, it's a counter, right? And you can actually change that C# code on the fly as well. So if I come down here and if I do a count of 10. And if I just save it and then I hit this like fire icon as you're building apps, this might be a quick way to push out the code changes, and now you can see it updates by 10 because like I didn't have to redo the app and it's just hot reload in action. So it works most of the time unless you're doing dependency injection, you're switching up your views and your view models, then it gets a little confused on the edges, but otherwise it's good for the most part. Now, let's talk about, since we are on Windows, let's talk about a couple of things here. First thing is, let me show you a WPF app, right? So nothing MAUI. Let's just say you have an older app that you're trying to bring forward. I'll show you what MAUI is actually, using under the covers. When you're running on Windows, it's trying to get a modern web view for you to bring in Blazor, but you don't actually have to use MAUI. That is just a NuGet package called WebView 2. So you bring that in, and just like that, on your WPF app, you can just load up any web application. So in this one here, I'm just pointing to a web URL. So I'm just saying this might be the lowest hanging fruit. This is a WPF app, by the way, but you don't, see that this whole thing is a website, right? So lowest hanging fruit, I can just load up a web application in my WinForms, a WPF app. But this may not be what you always want to do. It's kind of like a hackish thing. What you may like to do is maybe building your Blazor app inside, Blazor code inside of your WPF or WinForms. Similar idea, I've got the web view going here, but this time here I am using the Blazor web view, but here I do have the counter.razor component. So a Blazor component that I'm bringing in, which is meant for the web, but I'm trying to run this inside of a desktop application, right? So let's see if this is done loading up and we can fire this up. But the point is I brought this over without any styling, right? Without, I mean, just dropping a Blazor Razor component in here without any styles. So let's see if I can run this. It's done loading. All right, so out comes this WPF app, but if you didn't know that that counter is a Blazor component, right? So web and mobile and desktop technologies can really kind of nicely work together nowadays. So that's nice. Let me show you maybe something on the MAUI side, and then we'll come back to more things here on the web. Let's see if this ever worked. We tried deploying this and it did not work. So let's close this and see if I can launch a different app. All right, let's go to terminal, by the way. This is doable because modern.NET lets you do all of that terminal wise. So you can see what .NET I'm running. And it's being really slow on my machine. Especially on the Mac side. I have done something, I have way too many preview versions, so even the simplest of commands are slowing me up today. Wow, it cannot even give me a version number for .NET. It's that slow. I really hosed up my machine for some things. Let's go back to Windows. Let's see if I can show you more things, at least on Windows. So let's look at another MAUI type application here. This one is using Blazor inside of it. So let me go run this. All right, so now here's an idea. In your .NET MAUI app, so you have a modern web view. So it doesn't mean that that's all you have to do. You can actually, this is coming from my Mac. I can stay on my Windows machine, maybe. There we go. So you can actually mix and match a little bit of native UI with a little bit of web UI. So everything that you see here under this line is essentially all of the web UI. That's Blazor or Angular or React. but you can mix and match that with some other, native UI, which is this is a label, that's a button, and so that's a Blazor app running inside. So this is what I was trying to say. This is a desktop app, but it's bringing in some Blazor. I mean, it's just a Blazor Hello World thing, and you can do some fancy things with it here. So this one here is trying to show you like a little sample chat application, a Hello World type chat application, and I'm connecting up to a little SignalR backend that's hosted up in Azure, just to kind of show you what that means. And if the web app will come up now. All right, well, while it's coming up, everything that you expect from a Blazor app, it just works. But here you can see the Blazor component is also driving, a native UI component, your fetch data with the weather forecast, that all works. So I'm trying to show you a little chat room here if this will work. So make things bigger a little bit. So the web had said hi and send, you see that? And then this one here, if it connects, we can also say hello and send. Now I'm getting exceptions because I got things that are not quite talking between Windows and Mac, but hopefully you get the idea that it's, just a Blazor app inside of a desktop application. Since I am not having a good luck with the demos, let me point you to a few things here that at least you might be able to get to. So let me take you to my GitHub repo here. If you are, looking for ideas. So while I'm struggling with showing you demos, if you are, looking for ideas, I might have a few things for you to look at here if you are interested in, some code sharing strategies. Let's see if I can pull up my repos here. Okay, so let me show you a few things here. If you want to, customize a Mac UI, we have a whole handler architecture now, compared to Xamarin Forms, which did custom renderers, which is difficult. Now it's very, very easy. So you have an easy way to tap into each platform and just say, do this for iOS, do this for Android. So you can customize things very nicely. You can actually keep all of your, if you're doing, mixing and matching a little bit of, web stuff with .NET, then you can do Blazor, and you can actually truly keep a single project. I may not be able to run this, but I will try to show you this if Visual Studio comes up. This project here that I have is called Blazor Everywhere. So it is literally a Blazor project, but we have, ripped out some of the parts of the, Blazor engine that renders your components, and we have put it in a separate project that's called a Razor class library. That way, the same Blazor components can now power your app as it is on the web, just the way you have been building your Blazor app, over the last 3-4 years. But then you can take that same UI and just kind of put it in a shell, and then it starts working on desktop and mobile. So all of it is doable from a single app, single code base. And if you have, investments or any, older apps that you might have for Angular or React, that's also very welcome. Essentially, instead of going to Blazor and the index HTML and Blazor's, routing engine, you just, pre-build, an Angular or React app and you hand it over to the web view. It'll do that as well. When your Blazor app is running inside of a .NET MAUI app, you actually have some JS interop as well. So JavaScript interop is kind of baked into Blazor. You can bring that right over. So even when your Blazor app is running inside of your MAUI app, you do have access to JavaScript, and same goes with your Angular or your React app as well, because then JavaScript and .NET can talk to each other, and that interop is particularly well done because you don't have to think about creating that wall and flattening things out. It just takes care of all of it. So and the ecosystem for .NET MAUI is growing very rapidly. The tooling is now really solid on both Windows and Mac, even though it's preview. And there are lots of community things to help you out. There's a community toolkit that has lots and lots of behaviors and events and UI that's built in. If you're looking for UI, that's kind of given as well. A lot of tooling. I'm biased because we make the Telerik UI, but a lot of UI is out there for you to start just putting in your apps and starting lighting up your apps. And hopefully all of this makes you productive so you can start building something.